Next up, we have Sarah Iles, who was a CIR in, sorry if I mispronounce this, Hatsukaichi, Hiroshima from 1994 to 1996, and she will be speaking about marriage in Japan. Thank you, Sarah.
Hi, everybody. I'm Sarah, and thank you for the intro. This is what they call in Japan a mukashi banashi, right? A long ago story. So I was on JET before some of you were born, I'm sure, 94 to 96. But one of the things I've really come to realize in reconnecting with JETAA is how similar JET still is over the years. A lot of the experiences are consistent over time. This is the story of how I met and married my husband. The dating scene on JET back then, and I'm sure to this day, is very active, actually, both in the JET community, the broader international community, and also the Japanese community. So I was one of 3 JETs and 8 ALTs in my immediate circle who got married during my tenure on JET. It started, my story starts when I decided the winter of 1995 to go visit my homestay family. I had studied abroad in Japan as an undergrad, and so I was very close to my homestay family, and I traveled from Hiroshima to Kyoto, where my homestay family lived. And my homestay sister, who's the same age as me, and I brought a friend, an ALT, with me to visit. We all spent the New Year's holiday together. So New Year's holiday is a really important thing in Japan. You spend it with family, and that was my plan. But on New Year's Eve itself, New Year's 1995, my homestay sister and my friend Kayako, Nancy, and I all decided to go into town in Kyoto to celebrate and ring in the new year. In actual fact, we were kind of each other's cover. My homestay sister Kayako spent the night in a love hotel with her boyfriend that she later married. She ditched us pretty fast, but my friend Nancy and I, we went to what can only be described as a gaijin bar. It may still be there. It was a huge kind of party central place called Bar Isn't It, which had really cheap drinks, and we were, tossing back the Long Island iced teas. Nancy and I were having a lot of fun, and after midnight, after the new year had already rung in, I found myself on the dance floor, and it was really packed, somebody just jammed their hand between my legs. And I turned around and I kind of blindly swung at whoever had done it. And this really good looking guy who was standing next to me immediately grabbed the guy who had done it by the scruff of the collar and tried to kind of figure out what had happened and essentially came to my rescue. The groping incident passed pretty quickly because this guy who had helped me sorted out, and so I started talking to the guy who had helped me. His name was Sean, and he was Canadian, and he was also working in Japan. He was an English teacher, not on the JET program. And we hit it off. And so we ended up talking until the very early hours of the morning. Nancy and I did not make it home until daybreak, which was after my homestay sister. She had beat us home. I was in trouble with my homestay dad, who was mad at me for being a public servant and staying out all night. So he gave me a little lecture, the only time I was ever in trouble with him. But Sean and I hit it off. He was based in Imabari, which is in Ehime, and it is separated from Hiroshima by the Seto Naikai, the Seto Inland Sea. And this is just to give you an idea of how long ago this was. I mean, this was the very first time I ever connected to the internet was while I was on JET. I vividly remember trying to figure out how the modem connected to the PC, and the PC, it was just gobbledygook, right? My first emails were during my time on JET, and nobody had yet really figured out how to use it yet. So what that meant for communications was that Sean and I were communicating entirely by phone. And he, before we had parted ways in Kyoto, he said, you know what, we'll be able to stay in touch. And I said, no way, come on, it's too far. And he convinced me we could. So we started dating long distance entirely by phone. We would have these long phone calls where we talked into the wee hours, and we just clicked. So not too long after we met, he convinced me that it was worth dating, like really seriously dating. And it was a bit of a risk because this was a guy I'd met once in person, right? And we were separated by a sea. And dating meant that one of us had to get on a ferry for many hours. I've forgotten how long, probably like a 4-hour trip one way, and see each other for an extended period, right? So spend at least a day, if not a weekend together. And that's what it looked like. We had 13 dates so 13 weekends spent together over the course of the spring. And one thing led to another. We realized we wanted to be together, but because he was Canadian, I was from the States, we did not have the ability to be in each other's countries. I had already been accepted to law school, and I was coming home to the States. And we decided, you know what, we do want to make this official. And just in the course of conversation, we decided to get engaged. And then we had to get permission from each other's consulates or from our own consulate to get married. We realized soon that because of some of the immigration hurdles, we would need to be married to be together and go home together. And so we did. We eloped at City Hall, which was my home institution, Hatsukaichi-shi, the City Hall for Hatsukaichi-shi. And a fellow JET and my supervisor served as our witnesses. And I think I can flash the marriage certificate up on the screen if Dylan can help. I have the coolest marriage certificate ever. This is framed and hung on our wall in our living room to this day. We just celebrated our 24th anniversary on July 1st. I spent my wedding night in a love hotel. It was under construction. It was a really bad choice, but it's kind of unique, right? And just one last sort of tip for everybody. One thing to think about before you go on the JET program is your reproductive health and your dating needs. You might want to think about things like birth control, condoms. If you have a preferred kind, you might have to think a little bit about what's permitted into the country, because you might not be able to have medical supplies for a long time, but just give some thought to that and be prepared. As I said, I was one of 3 people in the JET community that got married. The other 2 were 2 married Japanese guys that they met on the program, and they stayed in Japan. And so, yeah, don't assume that you're gonna not date while you're in Japan. It's highly probable that you might find somebody. So that's it. Thank you all for your time.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Sarah. I'm definitely a romantic at heart, so I love stories, and yours is amazing. And I agree that you have an amazing relic in terms of the marriage certificate. That must be just, I love that you framed it too. Looking at it, that's really beautiful. It's like a work of art in itself. So thank you for sharing your story.